Maria Eastman is the founder of Rainhorse Equine Assisted Services right here in southern Arizona. Rainhorse provides counseling for groups who work with horses who have fallen on hard times. Maria started her horse journey at the age of 6, and it was love at first sight. Maria is a certified practitioner of the Masterson Method, which is a gentle technique that helps horses release tension and improve their overall health and well-being. Maria is also a contributor at the annual National Cowboy Poetry Gathering in Elko, Nevada. Please welcome Maria. Welcome to the Cowboy Up Podcast, brought to you by White Stallion Ranch and Cowboy Spirit Radio Productions. This is where talk is all about the West, the spirit of the West, and the people and the personalities that make up the West. My name is Steve Clausen, but the actual host of the show is Russell True. He is with White Stallion Ranch, and I just love sharing a microphone with this man. How are you doing today, Russell?
I'm great. Everything but my voice.
Everything but your voice. That happens, right?
Good, yeah.
Well, maybe it'll improve towards the second half. You never know, right?
Yeah, no, it's better than it was yesterday.
Okay, well, that's a good thing. You know, today, Russell, we've got a lady by the name of Maria Eastman who's got quite a story. She founded Rainhorse Equine Assisted Services right here in southern Arizona, and they provide counseling for groups who work with horses who have fallen on hard times. And I know you've got a couple of those horses around here that you've helped. And Maria started her horse journey at the age of 6, and I think she said it was love at first sight, but I'll let her talk about that. Maria, are you with us?
I am.
I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad to be with you again. I did not found Rainhorse in Arizona, but I founded it in Wyoming.
Oh, in Wyoming. Okay.
It existed for 15 years. But it didn't make the move with me from Wyoming to Arizona.
Okay. So tell me, you said you started your horse journey at the age of 6. Now that's younger, I think, than most people. Can you talk about that, please? Because that's interesting.
Yeah, something like that, 5 or 6, and sort of a typical thing. My parents were not horse people, and I pestered them until they finally relented and allowed me to take riding lessons from turned out to be an old cowboy named Red. And I still remember him, and I rode a big old gentle sorrel horse named Thunder. So that was kind of my first step, and then from there it's just pretty much been horses.
Well, I have to tell you, if my 6-year-old daughter wanted to get on a horse named Thunder, I think I might have some reservations about that.
Yeah, he wasn't, maybe he was thunderous in his early years, but he was super gentle, so he was a good
we
teacher.
have a Thunder, and he's good as they get. Never been otherwise, actually, as good as they get.
He just took good care of you, huh? That's a great thing. That is a great thing. Okay, so now in the interim, Maria, what have you done? I mean, after the age of 6, I'm sure that you did a couple of things after that. Can you talk about that?
Well, let's see. Where should I start? Well, when I got a little older, junior high and high school, I never I didn't do babysitting for extra money, but I lived in an area where a lot of parents had gotten horses for their daughters, and their daughters had lost interest in those horses, and they were just standing around in their corrals. And so I started a little business exercising horses for those types of people. And so I did have the same kind of pocket money that babysitter people had, but I got it a different way. And pretty much dreamed of nothing else but being a cowboy, and read a lot of Will James books, and but also went toward the other style of riding, the English riding, because I really like jumping horses. Thought that was pretty fun. So then I had to learn how to ride English in order to do that. So I've done that too. I've trained and started some colts. I've taught riding lessons to both able-bodied and handicapped riders. I have managed polo teams. I have retrained horses off the track. Gosh, I've done a lot of different things.
Well, that's interesting. And I'd like to ask you a question about something. When I was in California, I worked with a group called Project Ride, which was riding instruction designed for education. It was dealing with children that were handicapped, and we would put them on a horse and walk them around a ring and give them that experience, and they would learn from that. Is that basically what you were doing, or were you doing other different things?
Well, in the therapeutic horsemanship endeavors that I've done, kind of have been of two types. One is I am a advanced certified instructor of therapeutic riding through an international organization called the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship, or PATH.
That's a mouthful.
International. Yes, it is a mouthful. And so I have taught lots of riders, adult and children, how to ride with their particular handicaps. And of course, that is a whole range of abilities. Some people can become pretty efficient riders, and others aren't really going to do much more than be led on the horse. Of course, the movement of the horse has tremendous therapeutic benefits. And then the other thing that I've done is what's called equine assisted mental health, which is really what Rainhorse was about. We really enlist the help of horses to help people work through their troubles, whatever those may be. We worked with trauma survivors, veterans, incarcerated youth, all kinds of different people who were having struggles. And we actually enlisted the help of horses who had had struggles themselves. We found unwanted / sometimes abused, mistreated horses, and brought them home and rehabilitated them and put them through kind of a testing period to see if they could, in fact, work with our human clients in a safe manner. And all those horses did over the years, except only exception of one who didn't quite pass the test. But,
okay.
So that's what we were about, helping horses and helping people.
That's what really caught my ear right now, is because you were talking about how you dealt with some of these kids that had some challenges, and you dealt with horses that had challenges. And I've got to think at one point in time, the two would come together and probably each would benefit.
Absolutely. Yes.
And what does that look like? Because you're bringing these horses together. I mean, a horse is a very powerful animal, and everybody is winning in this scenario. I mean,
yeah, and that's kind of why we wanted to come at it from both points of view,
interesting,
both the horse and the human. And I believe that it might have been even more powerful for both species, since each of them had experienced troubles. And often we would find, we had a beginning activity where people and horses were kind of loose in an arena together, and we let the people and horses gravitate toward each other to pair them up to continue to work together over the next weeks. And very often the horse and the person who ended up finding each other had somewhat similar stories.
Interesting. I mean,
yeah. It was pretty, and I think if many people who you might talk to who've done similar work have similar stories of that pairing of energies.
So I've heard that story. I don't do it myself. I'm involved with the horses, of course, daily, but folks who do what you do, I've heard that story over and over. It's to the point where you can't help but believe it's true.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah, and what I get listening to Maria Russell is she just has a deep and unabiding love for the horses that she's working with and the people.
Yep. Well, it's clear but not unique. I mean, it's especially with women and horses. There's just that natural affinity.
Well, my daughter never got into horses, and it was okay with me because I knew that I would become second place, and
poor.
Yeah, well, and poor.
That's right.
But that's okay. If you're going to spend money someplace, you know where you can keep track of them there. So, but you bring. One of the things I loved about reading your bio is you love bringing what you call broken and disrespected horses back to a level where they are vital or they've got some level of vitality. Talk about that, would you please?
Well, okay. Well, now Rainhorse is. I have retired from Rainhorse.
Okay.
But I still have. I have a business now based in Sonita called Eastman Equine.
Okay.
And I bring a method of equine bodywork to clients in Southeast Arizona. And that's called the Masterson Method. And I wouldn't say that I don't often work on broken or disrespected horses anymore.
Okay.
I certainly did when I was working with horses that we rescued for Rainhorse. Now I work with horses who need to release tension. And the Masterson Method is a really brilliant method that works with the nervous system to release tension in the junctions of the horse's body that are critical for, optimal performance, whatever that performance might be, trail riding or therapeutic riding or Grand Prix jumping or cutting, you name it. The horse is an athlete. And so now I'm involved in helping that horse continue its athletic career as best as possible.
Okay. Well, and I want to talk about the Masterson Method, but my question is, something brought you to that. Some of the training that you were doing brought you up to, made you start employing the Masterson Method. What were those things? What were some of those distinctions that you made that made you think, I've got to take this deeper?
Well, that's a good question. I think that the Masterson Method offered me a more focused learning in how to read what the horse was saying.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
And
all right.
It certainly hasn't disappointed me. I think that I've expanded my feel and knowledge greatly from going through the training, and it continues to grow.
Okay. Well, we've got to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to talk more about that. Do you have something you want to ask, Russell, before we go to break?
No, not really. I think I would just say that, my brother Michael is an inexperience-based cynic, much like myself, and he's a big believer. I mean, we've had Jim Masterson here doing clinics. We've had folks that apply that method to help horses, help some of our horses, and so we've seen it. We've seen the rubber meet the road.
Okay. So we'll talk about more about that right when we return.
You bet. Thanks.
And thank you, Russell, Stephen, and Marie. Another great program. It's halfway done, but there's a lot more good stuff to come on the Cowboy Up podcast. My name is Stan. I'm Stan the Radio Man. I'm the leader of the Cowboy Spirit Radio Network, and I have the privilege and pleasure to help bring this great program to you every week. Hey, today is January 11th. It's 1/11, and that's the time oftentimes when many people kind of begin to fade on their New Year's intentions. Doesn't last very long too often. However, there's one gentleman who is really excited about the new year, and that is in about 10 days, Donald Trump will become the new president of the United States, and he's got lots of intentions and resolutions for 2025. He wants to thrive, not only survive, but thrive in 25. And we wish him all the best as he takes the leadership that he has sought and has been given to him by the American people. Now, how about you? What are you going to do differently in 25? Now, we're going to suggest perhaps that you think Western, you think the Western style, you think cowboy. Perhaps it's time for you to, as a business, find a way to have a cowboy entrepreneur experience in some of the programs that we will be presenting to help you give a new view of how you can do life and work today. And perhaps this is the time that you're going to get involved in the podcast revolution, that you, your business, your good cause, you know that if it's important, it needs to be heard. The story needs to be told. And this is the new medium of the 21st century. So we can help you. So, hey, here we go. StanHouston@gmail.com. StanHouston@gmail.com. And just say, Stan, tell me about how I can bring my business to the radio. Hey, Stan, tell me how I could be a cowboy broadcaster on the radio. We'll be glad to help you out. All the best and blessings to you in this coming year.
Okay, and we're back with Maria. Okay, Maria, something that I'm wondering what you mean by is you say something in an article that I wrote or that I read about you is what the horse has to say. Could you explain that a little bit, please?
Sure. That's actually a quote from Jim Masterson. Jim always says when we're working on a horse, and I'm quoting, just step back for a moment and see what the horse has to say, which is the beauty of this technique. It's interactive. Part of our training as practitioners, we're taught to recognize really subtle changes in the horse's body language. And that is the horse telling us something. So that is what the horse has to say. And it allows us to adjust the levels of pressure that can quiet the horse's energy state. And so that interaction works with the horse and allows the horse to release tension.
Interesting.
So when I'm working on a horse, I'm constantly reading the horse's response. So it's very, very interactive. And I think the horse must be saying, when we understand what they're saying, then they say, wow, that human understood. Which, of course, then leads to the horse expressing themselves more and more. And when I say expressing themselves, please bear in mind I'm thinking about acceptable ways of expressing themselves, because there are unacceptable ways, as we all know.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Now, again, I'm a retired chiropractor. I think you knew that about me. When you use something called craniosacral therapy, I'd love you to go a little bit deep on that, because I think that's interesting, because I know we use it with humans, and I've not really talked to anybody who's used it with horses.
Okay. Well, it's very much the same thing. It's, of course, using a soft touch that releases restrictions in the craniosacral system. The craniosacral system is balancing the craniosacral fluid and membranes that surround and protect the brain and spinal cord. So it's very much, it is like some of the techniques of Masterson, because it's very soft touch, and its goal is to restore balance in the system. It's also a way to release stored tension, and it's been known to help, not only the musculoskeletal, but the respiratory, clearly the circulatory. It's also been successful in relieving somatic conditions like PTSD and depression and anxiety in people. And certainly, I believe that some of the horses I've worked with have classic symptoms of, for instance, PTSD. They've been through traumatic experiences, and they have triggers that set them off. And so the craniosacral can help resolve those triggers.
Interesting. Okay.
Different topic. I have in my notes that you and your husband start colts using the California tradition. And, of course, people go, whoa, that probably figure that's...
I was doing that.
Yeah, what does that mean? But, California, actually, and southern Texas are probably where the Western traditions of ranching and got started first, because that's where it came up from Mexico. And so California has a deep tradition. And what are you talking about when we talk about that?
Well, couple corrections. One, we used to start colts.
Oh, okay.
And we may again, but currently we don't have any colts on the place.
But when you started colts, you used what is termed the California tradition? Is that?
It's
do
actually
we have that
called
right?
It's actually called Californio.
Okay.
Californio horsemanship, and it emphasizes communication and understanding and balance, over force or intimidation. So you can see that it has a lot in common with the Masterson Method. And you're right, it originated in California during the Mission era. It's probably, it's crossed over somewhat into what some people understand to be, quote, natural horsemanship.
Sure.
But this is the tradition that modern day horsemen like Bill and Tom Dorrance, Ray Hunt, Buck Brannaman, Brian Newbert, to name a few, that is the tradition that they follow. So it's really based on horse and rider communication, patience, partnership, long training. The end result is what's called a bridle horse, who is usually a horse who's been in training for up to 10 years. So it's creating a highly trained, highly communicative horse, working horse.
Mm-hmm. Working in the, I'm assuming we're talking about the Western.
For ranching.
Yeah.
Yes, for
ranch
ranching.
Horse.
A ranch horse, yes.
Interesting. Now, again, different topic. You've got way too much going on for me to at least remain focused on one area. You performed at the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering in Elko, Nevada.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, that's a good story. So I've always kind of written poetry, but nobody really knew about it except my family. And my husband used to haul horses back and forth from California to Wyoming, and he would always overnight in Elko at the fairgrounds with his horses, and then he'd go to the Star Hotel for a good Basque dinner, and he'd stop in at the Western Folklife Center in Elko, which is the nonprofit that hosts and organizes the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering. So he stopped in there and visit with the people who worked there. And one day he said, one trip, he said, my wife's a pretty good poet. And they said, well, tell her to apply. So he came home and he said, honey, you got to apply for this. And I thought, of course, he was crazy.
Funny.
I ignored him for 3 months, and he would not shut up. And on the last day it was possible to apply, I finally sent in an application, and lo and behold, they invited me to perform. So that was a stunning turn of events for me. And I guess I've been invited for 8 years or so now, and it's just a joy to go to. It's a wonderful event. And I feel very, very lucky to be included.
Okay, that's actually very cool, and I think it's interesting how when we do something, we don't think that much of it, but everybody else, but a lot of people, those people around us are thinking, hey, that's pretty remarkable. You should be sharing that.
Yes, and I just thought he was nuts,
Well,
so.
I can't comment on that. I mean, I don't know one way or the other.
So, have you've 8 years in a row recently? I mean, are you still doing that? Is this
Yes.
something somebody could, if they get, because this is, for those who don't know, I mean, this is the mecca for cowboy poetry. Elko, Nevada has always been known, and everybody who's in this genre knows that that's the place. So you'll, what time of year is that? I've always wanted to go and never made it. I don't get far away very often.
It's the last weekend in January and the first couple days in February. I can look it up real quick. But I should know
can
the
look
dates
it
by
up,
heart.
right? I mean, because it's the Elko
National
Cowboy Poetry. And you better book it, right? Because I mean, that thing gets attendance, and Elko's not Las Vegas.
Yes. We always say, if you think you might want to go, grab a hotel room.
Yeah.
And then you can always cancel that, but the hotel rooms get pretty booked up.
Yeah, that's what I've always heard.
And we actually have a lot of incredible musicians as well.
Really?
I was going to say, there's a lot going on there, right? I mean, it's not just the poetry.
Right. And, there's cooking classes, there's traditional dance, there's a lot of craft workshops like cinch making, leather carving. There's even a poetry writing workshops. So it's quite multicultural. We've had visitors and performers from the Basque country in Spain, and it's pretty great gathering of all the cultures, I think, across the world who are pastoralists, who raise cattle and sheep while, stewarding native landscapes.
That's awesome. Do you have anything that you might be willing to share with us?
I would love to do that.
Awesome.
So, I do have a poem here. Now, let me preface this with, I am mainly what's called a free verse poet, which means my poems don't rhyme. But since I've been going to Elko, I've gained a real appreciation for the traditional rhyme and meter form of cowboy poetry. Mm-hmm. So this is one of my attempts at that. And it was written in memory of Ian Tyson, who passed a couple years ago, and with thanks to another great musician, Tom Russell. And the poem is called Old Horses. I hope he died before his old horses up there in that cold Canada land. I hope he never saw their legs buckle, didn't watch them fight to stand. I hope he passed in that small stone house where he would go to play and write. I'd like to think he held a fine guitar and that it was tuned just right. I've heard the stories about him, of his struggles and his pride, but all I know are the tender songs, his love of country, high and wide. Although, we never met, there was a part of him I knew. When I read the words he'd spoke, I felt kinship, deep and true. It's told one winter day in Santa Fe, his friend asked about the forces that bound him north. It's simple, he said, for I'll never leave these old horses.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll tell you, it is beautiful. I will tell you, it's just my luck. Ian Tyson was out here with a friend of his at White Stallion, and I was gone that night, and I didn't know he was coming. And I heard the next day, a guest said, "Oh, you had a famous singer at the ranch, Ian Taylor." And I said, "No, I think that." I said, I'm betting you're talking about Ian Tyson. And they said, no, it was Ian Taylor, I'm sure. I said, no, I think so I had to confirm that there wasn't some unknown singer I hadn't heard of that was Ian Taylor. But
that's funny.
But it was Ian Tyson, and I'm not gone that often, but I wasn't here. So
Darn.
And I know
Darn.
a couple of my friends, my great friend in Calgary, Mac McKinney, and he knew Ian very, very well. So how do people get they're going to want to get some help with some horses, and you've got some other stuff coming up. I think you said talk to us about the clinics and getting in touch with you for the Masterson Method, helping their horses.
Okay, well, people can email me, or they can call me, or they can text me. I don't mind whichever way.
So give
my
us
email. I'm sorry?
Yeah, so go ahead, give us that email.
Okay. My email is Maria, my first name, Maria, at tctwest.net. And that's like Tom, Cat, Tom, West, one word, .net.
Okay.
And then my phone number is area code 307-250-2711.
And they can call or text you, you said, and then Maria at tctwest.net. So remember, it's
Correct.
.net, not that other one, .net.
Okay.
And they can get in touch with you. You can help them with their horses. And what about some clinics? Where are they?
Well, the first clinic that we will be doing, I'm teaming with a Tucson-based equine osteopath, Vanessa Helvey, who's also a Masterson Method certified practitioner. And we're launching a series of workshops that we're calling For the Good of the Horse. And we will offer 2 tracks. One is for the horse owner, and the other one will be for professional equine body workers. Mm-hmm. The first clinic will be in Sierra Vista on December 14th. And it will be a half-day clinic for owners. And it is assessing your horse, integrative body work for owners to identify and release tension.
And that's in Sierra Vista.
That's in Sierra Vista. And people can contact me to register. And it's just it's a half-day clinic.
Super.
And then the second track will be for the professional body workers. We're offering a 3-part clinic in cranial sacral therapy. There'll be introduction, intermediate, and advanced. And we'll begin with a full-day clinic for level 1 introduction on February 15th next year, 2025. And that location will be in Tucson, to be determined.
Super. and this is you and an osteopath, and of course craniosacral therapy. That's a part of osteopath's toolkit, right? I mean, that's
Absolutely.
with humans and I didn't know there were horse osteopaths, but all right. Well, we've run over again. Thank you, Maria.
That's what we do that with interesting guests, don't we?
Yeah.
Maria, thank you. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Well, it's been a delight to talk with you.
Listening to Maria, it was really heartwarming for me, because this is a woman who started her horse journey when she was 6 years old in a different state. She started a foundation. She left the foundation behind. She moves to Sonita, and she starts another foundation, and she starts teaching again. I think it's just another example of once you get started with horses, it becomes like a bug that you can't get rid of.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you see it more often in women, but I've seen lifelong horse interactions with men also, and just as strong. It's what she does is one of those examples of where she's talking about throwing horses and humans in a corral and they find each other. And we've said it so many times on this podcast, horses and dogs and humans, they just have a unique connection, and they aren't the same. And horses and humans connection is very special in certain ways.
It's remarkable.
Well, that's a wrap, folks, and thank you very much for being a part of the Cowboy Up Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Just write to us, the Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com, the Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com. Tell us what you think, how we can do better, how we can help you. Perhaps you would like to audition to be on the program. We have a variety of storytellers and creators and great men and women who have lived the Western life, and perhaps you're one of them and no one has ever heard your story. Maybe this is the year your story is heard. So if you'd like to audition to be on the program, or somebody who would be a great guest for us to have, Russell and Stephen would love to invite them to join us right here at the White Stallion Ranch for the Cowboy Up Podcast. Again, the Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com. May it be a great year for you. Things have been tough, but things will be good. They'll be better. The cowboy way is always the way of optimism, as well as compassion and a touch of charity and generosity from time to time. So see if we can't all live that way just a little bit better. And this is going to be a significant year for me. I'll be a really old man, so I thought, let's kind of go out with a story. Horses, dogs, and old men. Jim Jones, one of our favorite friends, will take us out.
Horses and old men riding the changes that blow on the wind, wishing they could do it all over again. Old horses and old men, dreaming of golden days from the past, a proud way of life that just couldn't last. They gave their all time and again. Old horses and old men, old horses, old men, set in their ways, remembering the thrill of those bygone days. Old horses, old men, ride out again, raring to start, but nearing the end. Oh, the rowdy and rambling tales they could spin. saddle up before daylight, a little bit stiff, but still full of fight. They come riding home around twilight, old horses and old men. Time's moving on, they can't deny that. Life is a-changin', but they live in the past. Heroes with saddles and cowboy hats, old horses and old men. Old horses, old men, set in their ways, remembering the thrill of those bygone days. Old horses, old men, ride out again, raring to start, but nearing the end. Oh, the rowdy and rambling tales they could spin. Old horses and old men. And the old horse and the old man, they slowly wait. They're watching from over the top of the gate. A lifetime's gone by, now this is their fate. Old horses and old men. Remembering the old days, the things that they've seen. Even old horses and old men can dream of a time when proud men and horses were king. Old horses and old men. Old horses, old men, saddled once more, biding their time, but they're ready for more. Old horses, old men, ride out again. They're raring to start, but they're nearing the end.